afternoon and welcome to another webinar. The Association of Justice and Treatment Professionals is committed to trying to provide opportunities for the ongoing professional development of persons who work in the justice and treatment space. Things are always changing, new ideas are always coming up, and we are committed to trying to provide a forum for that. We are always thankful to all those expert practitioners like those that we have today who take the time to share their expertise. Today's topic, the downtown and the impacts. And before I introduce the panelists, there are a couple of housekeeping matters. The first thing is we remind the panelists who are not speaking to keep their microphones muted. And also, we love to engage with you, usually at the end of the presentation. So please do not hesitate to send your questions through the Q&A button function there. And at the end of the presentation, Mary Pagani is going to lead us through the question and answer, and our panelists have kindly agreed to take your questions. We're looking forward to that portion of engaging with you. And we are very thankful to our panelists. They've agreed that this can be recorded, which means that in about 72 hours, it will be on the website www.justicetreatment.org. It will be in our video catalog, and you can access it and listen to it again, or you could share it if you think somebody will benefit from it. Do not hesitate to find out what this organization is doing on Twitter, LinkedIn, and subscribe to the mailing list on the website so that you continue to receive information in terms of what is happening. We work as a team, and we want to acknowledge the team. Mary Pagani, Mary is here. She's from PARC, and she works on various programs, including the Brampton Drug Treatment Court, and there's some other programs that Mary works on. Jennifer Graham is an assistant crown attorney from Peel. Andrew Rivard is with the Ontario Duty Council, also working in Peel. Kim Breaks is an associate professor at the University of Western Ontario. Erin Smith is the person who handles our posters and all our communications. And she works in a special integrated mental health and law enforcement integrated team with Peel. She works with the I think is CAMH, yes. Anyway, so all I've been doing right now is I've been talking about important things, but I've also been stalling so that as many of us can join as possible. I see that a number of us have joined, and so now an important thing, the land acknowledgement, and Mary, I'll turn that over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Justice Barnes. So we will begin this webinar by acknowledging that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. As settlers, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Long before today, as we gather here, there have been Aboriginal peoples who have been the stewards of this land. In particular, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwa and Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this land. We also recognize the contributions of the Métis, the Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community, in particular, our province and our country as a whole. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. and in particular to bring justice for the lives lost in residential schools, as well as all the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls across the country. And with that, I'll turn it back to Justice Barnes.
Thank you so much, Mary. We are very pleased today that the Honorable Judge James Bain from the Downtown Community Court, he's a judge of the Provincial Court of British Columbia, and Judge Bain graduated from the University of Toronto Faculty of Law in 1983. He was called to the bar in British Columbia in 1985. He did criminal defense work in Vancouver from 1985 to 2000, and he was appointed to the British Columbia Provincial Court in 2011, assigned to the 22 Main Street, Vancouver Court in 2013. And then in 2008, he was also assigned to the Vancouver Downtown Community Court. So we are pleased that His Honor has agreed to be part of today's presentation. Also, Sharon Lockhart. Sharon has worked in public service for some 35 years. She's done all kinds of things. She's been a correction officer, a youth worker, family court counselor, and probation officer. She's also managed several court, community corrections, probation offices, as well as the Drug Treatment Court of Vancouver. She has a passion for helping clients with mental health and addictions, and she also has a passion for working to support Indigenous clients and agencies. And she's done this throughout her career. She has facilitated core programs with community corrections. She's managed Indigenous portfolios for circuit courts. She's been involved in strategic training in community supervision, in the Community Supervision Initiative, and has provided wellness training for corrections staff. Sharon is also currently the director of the integrated program for the Downtown Community Court, the Drug Treatment Court of Vancouver, the Vancouver Integrated Supervision Unit, with the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General Community Corrections Branch. And in this role, she provides oversight to programs within problem-solving courts and other integrated initiatives. She also engages multiple partners, stakeholders, and communities, ensures that programs support the Downtown Community Court clients and help them successfully integrate back into the community. Sharon also chairs the Downtown Community Court Managers Committee, the Downtown Community Court Steering Committee, and co-chairs the Downtown Community Court Advisory Committee. She's also an active member of the Restorative Justice Working Group in Vancouver and a board member of the Canadian Association of Drug Treatment Courts. So thank you for being here, Sharon. And also Fiona Lawrence. Thank you for being here, Fiona. Fiona is local manager at the Downtown Community Court. She's worked in the British Columbia Community Corrections. She's worked in that organization for over 20 years. And she has been with the Downtown Community Court since it opened in 2008. So that's enough of me. I do not know who I'm going to first, so you got to tell me who is picking up first, but I know I'm done and it's over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Justice Barnes, for that, that introduction. We're very pleased to be here today and really appreciate the opportunity to share information about the Downtown Community Court with you and talk a little bit about what goes on here and how it all works. As Kobe mentioned, I'm Sharon Lockhart. I'm the Director of Integrated Programs here, and I would like to start off on behalf of my colleagues, Judge Bain and Fiona Lawrence, to a small acknowledgement as well for coming to you today from the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. And in Vancouver, that consists of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And so what we'd like to do is give you an overview, and if you have any problems, if we have any tech problems, I'm thanking Mary in advance for bringing that to my attention. So just bear with me while I share the screen. I'm going to start. Judge Bain is then going to give you some information from his view in the bench as the lead judge at Downtown Community Court, and then Fiona is going to give you a bit of the magic that happens with the case management teams the uniqueness that happens with multiple partners working under one roof. I've got a couple of extra slides, a little bit of evaluation, and then we've got time for a question and answer. So here we go. Let me know when you can see it, because I can't really see when it comes up. Can somebody just like, can you see it?
Sharon.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. Okay, thanks, Fiona. Okay, so, all right, let's get started. So I don't know how many people on the call have been to Vancouver or are familiar with Vancouver, but we're going to give a little bit of overview of where the court is, the geography of the court, a little bit of the history. Some of the things that we hope to cover today are a little bit more detail about what DCC is. And DCC, sorry for the acronym, Downtown Community Court. We have all these acronyms in the specialized court and teams. You know, basically why the community court was developed, why it was created, partnerships, stakeholders, case management team, programs, evaluation. So that's kind of our little outline there that I just mentioned. So for those who haven't been to Vancouver or aren't maybe familiar with Vancouver, it's a city in the west coast of British Columbia. The population in 2021 in the main part, in the core part of Vancouver, was just over 662,000 people. Greater Vancouver, which includes the North Shore Mountains, Burnaby, surrounding cities, is about 2.6 million, I believe, in 2021 as well. So it kind of gives you an idea of kind of the size and scope. It's on the coast, so it is attractive for a lot of people for outdoor activities. It's got a fairly mild climate, which also attracts people, both for tourism, for migration, and for retirees, increasingly. In terms of geography, on a greater map, for anyone who's not familiar with it, it's about 3 hours north of Seattle, Washington. And the picture here is an aerial view, and I'm sorry about I was trying out some graphics and that arrow is rather distracting. I'll get to that. But up in the upper left-hand corner, the green space there is Stanley Park, which is about 1,000 acres of dedicated land, parkland. And if you look at the insert here, are you guys able to see the little circle? My little pointer or no?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so right here where my little circle is, that is that green space up in the picture. So that Stanley Park kind of looks like the head of a seahorse. And the outline in the insert is the geographical area of the Downtown Community Court, which is situated, as the arrow is indicating, just to the east in what is known as the neighborhood of the downtown east side. And what we're looking at here is the business district. It's also residential district. It's about 65 to 70% residential in what you're looking at right there. But it's also the core business district, Cold Harbor, the West End, and then to the east we get into more historical and tourist places, neighborhoods such as Chinatown and Gastown, and that is where the downtown community court is situated. Sorry. Okay, so just a little quick 101 why the downtown community court was created. It was really in response to crime in the downtown core of Vancouver and people cycling in and out of systems, criminal justice systems with health, mental health, and addiction. And back in the early 2000s, the Attorney General created a street crime working group and tasked them to look at what are some solutions for this problem. How can we stop this sort of systemic cycle, and what can we do to support people within the justice system? And in 2005, the working group released a report called Beyond the Revolving Door, which highlighted the need for, among many things, a community court in the neighborhood. There was consultation with the Red Hook Community Court, which is one of the first community courts in the United States in New York City, and also consultation with the Center for Court Innovation in New York, who I believe also did some presentations on this on one of the webinars with Justice Barnes a few weeks ago. So the court itself, the Downtown Community Court, was opened in 2008. And in 2018, we celebrated 10 years of the operation of the Downtown Community Court, and it is now 14 years in operation and going strong. I just left that in because I just wanted to do a little woohoo. Here we are. Okay. So keeping the wheels on the bus takes a lot of work. The Downtown Community Court, under the umbrella of the Provincial Court of British Columbia, partners with 14 different agencies in justice, health, and social services. Working together, we are co-located under one roof, and that includes the court. To help support the infrastructure and the operations, there is a Downtown Community Court Executive Board, a steering committee, and also a Community Advisory Council that brings in the lens of the community to the court in terms of how we support our communities, best programs that we can use, and to inform the court of what's going on in the actual communities that we're servicing. So some of the partners that we have, again, I mentioned under the umbrella of the provincial court, under the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, we have Corrections Branch, and that's where Fiona and I are both attached to. Under Public Safety and Solicitor General, we also have the Victim Court Support Workers under the Safety and Crime Prevention Branch. Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction is for income assistance for clients that are in need. Ministry of Attorney General provides the court services support, and that also includes the sheriffs, the BC Prosecution Service, excuse me, and Justice Services Branch. We also have a partnership with the Forensic Psychiatric Services Commission, Vancouver Police Department, Vancouver Coastal Health, which is our health authority in for our area. Legal Services provides defense counsel, and there is one dedicated position on site for the defense, and one position where defense rotate for in custody and out of custody. We also partner with a number of nonprofits, Watari Counseling and Support Services provide us with system navigator positions that do outreach, and they are amazing. Elizabeth Fry Society helps organize the court and offers programs on site. BC Housing and Vancouver Aboriginal Transformative Justice Services Society provides a justice coordinator for the Downtown Community Court for Indigenous clients. So that is a lot, I know, and I'm trying to keep it within the 10-minute frame. But what I wanted to say is, how does this all work on site? And the next slide I'm going to show you is for people who are visual, and to also give you an idea of just how complex this is. Now, this slide is a little bit older. It was done in 2018, courtesy of Sam Brad Drawing Change. He's a graphic artist who pulled together kind of a snapshot of all of the moving parts of the Downtown Community Court. Now, some of these positions have altered slightly. The core ones in green in the inner circle of the community court are still pretty much all the same, all of these ones. And so there's interaction with so many agencies that are nonprofit and government, and overlap with a number of areas that support the client in the end. Is kind of the overall overarching goal. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Judge Bain, and he's going to share a little bit with you about what he does.
All right, thank you, Sharon. The job of a judge at Downtown Community Court, I thought I'd explain some of the legal aspects. In my view, the role of the judge is a lot less important than what actually happens in the rest of the building. I'll just try and sketch for you what the Downtown Community Court structure is like. There's just one small courtroom. There is about a gallery with seating for about maybe 25, 28 people in that courtroom gallery, and there's enough room for a Crown Counsel or two and a couple of defense counsel. The dais for the judge is much lower because, at least pre-pandemic, the judge's job was to speak directly to a person who is being sentenced and to go over the terms of their bail order or their sentencing order, and to have them sign it with the judge right there in the courtroom. We've had to modify that, of course, because of the pandemic, unfortunately, but we're working our way back into a more face-to-face setting. That's, I guess that's me in the picture there. I don't think I'm that old. I appear to be quite elderly in that photograph, but from my perspective, the accused person appearing in front of me, or the person who's volunteering to pose as an accused in this photograph, is someone who I want to try and communicate with and develop some kind of continuity with. Unfortunately, there are a number of people who come to Downtown Community Court who are going to be there repeatedly, and I try and get a sense of them as an individual. That's one of the important aspects of the physical structure of this courtroom. You can see how it's much more direct and immediate than your typical courtroom, because the contact and the conversation with the accused as they're signing their documents is much more immediate. In terms of the legal structure, what we try and do is deal in a therapeutic way with bail orders and dispositions with sentences. For a judge to be therapeutic is a bit of a stretch. Going to law school is not most people's idea of how to become a good therapist. The important aspect of the judicial role is to be receptive to what the people who work at Downtown Community Court, Sharon and Fiona and the people that work with them, can provide us as judges with information to make decisions in an informed way. So when I'm trying to decide about the appropriate sentence, unlike when I'm in a traditional criminal court, I don't feel that I'm making those decisions in an unguided way or an independent way. I think the independence of the judiciary is a bedrock principle of criminal justice, but in the Downtown Community Court, my independence is also dependent upon the expertise of therapeutically involved professionals who work upstairs in the same structure that I'm working in. The courtroom is very small, as you can see, but the space upstairs, one level above us in the same building, is a much larger space filled with individuals whose work includes health, physical and mental health services, housing services. All of those things are provided to me, usually in an informal way by submissions of counsel. We have such a high volume that it's very unusual for me to receive a written report for any bail decisions or for any sentencing decisions. Yesterday, there were in court, in Downtown Community Court, yesterday there were 106 files that we dealt with. Today, there are so far 78 or 77 files with additions still coming. So it's a busy courtroom. We do not do trials. It's impossible to do a trial in the volume setting that we're in. If the trials are going to take place, they happen next door to us at 222 Main Street. The benefit of the location that we're in is that if there is a complex sentencing or a more complex bail decision, it can be moved with a Downtown Community Court judge, such as myself or one of my two colleagues who work there. It can be moved easily to the courthouse next door. And I would emphasize that's a major benefit. If you have a case that's going to take 45 minutes or an hour, it can't be dealt with in the normal Downtown Community Court. It's just too busy there. We've made some decisions at the outset back in 2008 to limit Downtown Community Court to summary conviction offenses. There are no indictable offenses that come to Downtown Community Court. I'm not sure how much of the audience is from a criminal justice system outside of Canada, so I should just pause to explain that in the Canadian criminal justice system, an indictable offense is a more serious offense. It usually involves the option of a jury trial, and a summary conviction offense is a less serious on the spectrum offense. The role of Crown Counsel is very important because they're the ones who make the discretionary decision in the advance of any court appearance about whether or not the category of offense will be indictable or summary. We've had to make some difficult decisions over the years. We're supposed to serve the entire community, but we have decided in recent years that cases involving allegations of intimate partner violence would not be dealt with in Downtown Community Court. They've been moved to the courthouse next door, 222 Main Street. The complexity of intimate partner violence cases is something that can't be adequately addressed in Downtown Community Court, and that's a decision that I happen to agree with, although arguably it was controversial because obviously those types of cases are a very important feature of our downtown community. The other aspect of the Downtown Community Court legal spectrum is an abstraction. It's a geographical limitation. We have to have a limitation to define the volume of cases, but we do flex that limitation. If someone has a case in Downtown Community Court that's going to be resolved with a sentencing agreement with Crown, and they have other pending files outside of our geographical limits, those other pending files can be brought into Downtown Community Court if Crown Counsel and Defense Counsel both find that it's beneficial and meets the ultimate goals of a therapeutic outcome in Downtown Community Court. I don't want to take too much time today. I'd like to try and place an emphasis on answering questions from people in the audience. So beyond saying that the role of the court is therapeutic and the effort is to define what would be a long-term therapeutic outcome for an individual client, the judge's role is quite limited. As those of you who are legal professionals know, the criminal code doesn't acquire much flexibility in its application of incarceration or probation or the terms of a conditional sentence order. All these types of sentencing options have to be informed by what I learned from the staff at Downtown Community Court. It's an ongoing process that I find very beneficial, and it does require a judge to be open to the prospect that judicial decision-making has to take a second row a second priority to the information we receive from therapeutic professionals who are familiar with more information than I would have available to me as a judge. One of the things that's very valuable is the cooperation between what is separate, normally separate empires in a provincial government's structure of services. Health, Vancouver Coastal Health is our local health authority, and their ability to access information about hospital admissions and current access to treatment for an individual, all those medical records that would be very difficult or impossible to acquire in a traditional criminal justice setting at a courthouse, that health information is directly available to downtown community court staff. And that's made a huge difference in terms of judicial decision-making. I'm not going to be regarding a breach of a reporting condition to a bail supervisor or a breach of a probation reporting condition as being particularly serious if I also receive at the same time information that the individual who's not reporting is, however, attending to their treatment team and is receiving their monthly injections for a chronic form of mental illness. If all of those services are in place, it's a major piece of the puzzle for a judge to learn that the health services are still being provided, even though the individual is before the court is at least technically in breach of a judge's order with regard to reporting conditions. I think I'd like to leave more time now for Fiona and Sharon to describe the role of the downtown community court staff. But I just wanted to sketch some of the legal structures that we've encountered in working at the facility so far.
Thank you, Judge Bain. That's a great photo of you. I think it looks just like you do today. So Fiona's going to talk about the case management teams in just a minute and give you sort of an overview. But I wanted to, at the beginning, I had a slide about Vancouver being one of the most, it's a beautiful city. It's a livable city. You know, it has a great climate. There's a lot of outdoor natural things that you can do. It appeals to a number of people. However, the flip side of that is that it's a nice place to come, and a lot of people come here, is that housing and the price of housing. You may or may not know that in Vancouver, I think Vancouver may be the most expensive city in Canada at the moment, or close to it. It varies between Toronto and one point Montreal, but it is definitely expensive to purchase a house and to rent accommodations. For our clients that come down here, there is within the downtown east side, just a real quick historical note, the hotels that most of them end up are called single room occupancy hotels. And these hotels were really, they were built back in the day when loggers and miners would come and they needed a place to stay and they had a bit of money and they might be in between jobs, but they didn't want to have an apartment. So it would be like, you know, a room with a bed and a sink if you're lucky and a chair, shared washroom. And, you know, with that, they had money to spend, which brought in, no surprise, the sex trade, drugs, alcohol, and crime. And that sort of is kind of the foundation for the downtown east side's SROs, which are not the nicest place to put someone that you care about for anybody. And so why I mention that is in 2016, we had the BC Provincial Health Officer announce a public health emergency because of the increasing number of overdose deaths due to opiate. And at that time, it was mostly, we were hearing about fentanyl and carfentanil. We had staff being trained in naloxone, kits on how to recover people and help them. But at the same time, we also, it sort of paralleled the same time with the growing housing crisis, and in particular supported housing for our clients. And the other piece that we also know is that about 10 years ago, there were probably half the people that are in the downtown east side core. So what that means is through migration and through, for a variety of reasons why people end up in the downtown east side. In the same 10-block radius, we have almost double the same number of people looking for housing and supports and services. So we've had a number of tent cities that have come up and protests and trying to support housing and addiction for mental health and addiction and mental health support. So the reason I mention that is not to scare you off from coming to Vancouver, but it is to sort of set the tone of this is a very accurate picture of the work that the case management teams are dealing with in our vulnerable population. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fiona to talk about what the teams do, and let me know when you want to move to the next slide.
Thanks, Sharon and Judge Bain. I would like to speak today a little bit about what happens, as Judge Bain mentioned, upstairs. So above the court, we have a whole area of desks and staff, and we have program rooms, we have a reception, we have sheriffs at our front gate, and we have people that come through the courts that have been identified by the courts with the information that we provide as having facing a lot of struggles and having high needs, multi-barrier. Those are the clients that we're seeing on our teams. So I'm just going to go through because there are several teams, and so I'm going to just sort of identify some of the teams and some of the things that happen at Downtown Community Court. So in the morning, as you see in the corner there, there's the triage team. So at early morning, 7 o'clock, this triage team is coming together. There's a senior probation officer. There's a Vancouver Coastal Health social worker, a forensic liaison nurse, a Vancouver police officer, and our Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. So our income assistance worker. Here early, and they're each and a probation officer, and they're each looking at their systems for anybody that was arrested overnight in that catchment area that we've identified. And that way we're able to provide some great information ahead of court even starting. So that information is provided to our Crown and our defense for the morning. And then there's a morning meeting where these cases are discussed and actions are decided. And it just really allows the courts to have a great understanding of who was arrested overnight and who may be new on that court list for the day. So that triage team is happening early morning and helping provide that information to the courts throughout the day. They're also triaging clients that come through as we go through the day. We get a lot of alternative measures at Downtown Community Court. So this is like a diversion through away from the court. That's where the probation officer will see the client, set up a plan, and then have that client complete that plan. We let the courts know, and often there is a stay of proceedings on that charge if that client follows through with that plan that's been decided. These things might be community work service. It might be attending a program at Downtown Community Court, writing an apology letter, etc. So that's the triage team. Our case management teams are for our sentence clients. So clients that are being sentenced at Downtown Community Court, either on a probation order or a conditional sentence order, and have been assessed by our Vancouver Coastal Health social worker and consulted with the probation staff, because we want to make sure we're getting those clients that are falling through the cracks. So those clients that aren't connected to services, those clients that are not doing well on probation, those clients that are presenting with multiple barriers, mental health, addiction, homelessness, financial issues. Those are the clients that we screen into our programs. These clients come up to the team after being in court, and when things are working, COVID's put a little bit of a kink into our processes, but when we get back to our normal processes, that client is actually sentenced in court downstairs, walked upstairs by an e-FRI volunteer, attached or connected to a probation officer, a health provider, our income assistance worker are all here to be able to connect with that client immediately. Sometimes we even set that client up with a shelter bed. If they're homeless, we have an agreement with our BC housing worker, and we have shelter beds. So we're able to actually get that person a bed that night. And as has been mentioned, the only clients that we usually are not taking on are those clients with sexually motivated offenses or domestic violence, or if the client is going for trial. So these are sentenced clients that come through the downtown community court. Thanks, Sharon. If you could move forward. In that slide, it did identify that there's probation and health and all the team working together. So we do, just as a note, we do collaborative case management. So it's not one particular profession leads this. It's a collaborative approach to working with a client. It's a wraparound service that we provide. Some unique programs as well at Downtown Community Court. We have a mental health program. So this is a bail program. So prior to a client pleading guilty or going to trial, if they're placed on bail or release order, we notice that they have, or we've identified that they have significant mental health concerns. We will connect them immediately with a team, which includes a probation officer, an outreach worker that's from a nonprofit agency, and a forensic health nurse, and a psychiatrist is attached with that team as well. And that team can immediately start providing stabilizing supports for that client's mental health, as well as other, housing, connecting to community resources. This is a bail program. It is meant to be a short-term program. So the goal is to actually stabilize that client's mental health and connect them to those community resources. And then after that period of time, we let the courts know that the client is now, their mental health has stabilized, or they've now been connected to health services. So really, our hope with this program was diverting people out of the justice system, not criminalizing the mental health aspect of somebody's, the way that somebody's exhibiting their behaviors. And the hope would be that we could actually look at possibly staying the charge as well on that if a client connects. So that would be a court decision, but our goal is to connect that client to community resources. In the meantime, we do provide a period of treatment so it might be getting that client to pharmacies for medication connections. Our psychiatrists can also give an injection and help to stabilize that client. Sometimes it is hospitalization, and then support from transitioning from hospital to community. There isn't consent required for this participation. So we will put the client on, and we'll use all of our skills to get that engagement with the client. And the other program I spoke with before, we do need consent so that we have that information sharing. And lastly, the chronic offender management enforcement team. This team has a VPD officer, so a Vancouver police officer, a senior probation officer, and another Watari worker, a nonprofit agency, working together to support those clients that are chronic offenders, so that are cycling in and out of jail. Sometimes they're out of jail for maybe a day or two where they are reoffending. So there's sort of a cycling of jail community. So this team works really hard to connect that client to stabilize that client. Treatment is a big piece. Just engagement with probation and the police officer can take some time to build that strong relationship as well. This team does excellent work with some of those people that commit some more offenses than the average in the downtown east side here. So that, in a nutshell, is some of the teams. And I can answer any questions. I've done this quickly because we do want to open it up so you guys can ask us some questions. Thanks, Sharon. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Fiona. That was awesome. We just have a couple more slides here and then we'll get to the Q&A. I'll go kind of quickly. So we have a number of programs. We mentioned bridging clients and the wraparound care, but when they leave is where we want them to succeed and not come back. So these are not all of our programs by any means, but this is just a background shot of our community kitchen / program room. We have 3 program rooms. This is the biggest one. And some of the programs that we run, we have partnerships with Adler University and Capilano University here in Vancouver and in the North Shore. For art therapy, we have, which we call, it's art drop-in, art studio, but it's art therapy students that are finishing their MA, and they, for their last year, they get the real life experience, which is supported and able to get that, to able to share what they can with the clients and help them. The music therapy studio is something that started up again in January after a bit of a hiatus from the pandemic. The dental hygiene program through the University of British Columbia is a new partnership that began during the COVID. And what they're able to do is reach out to clients and give them information, help them with insurance forms, help them to just do quick kind of oral assessments and then do referrals to dentists that offer support for people that are on a fixed income or are receiving social assistance. We offer other programs that are facilitated, conflict resolution, understanding anger. Elizabeth Fry Society offers a crime and consequences program that's facilitated. Community kitchen is something that we had on hold during COVID, but it's opening up again in the fall. And that is where the staff at DCC partner up with some of the clients and they make a meal together. And they learn how to not only cook and enjoy the meal, but they learn how to do something in a social setting and build rapport that way. And then we also offer some other programs, including SMART, which is the self-management recovery program that's peer-led. I really appreciated Mary's land acknowledgement at the beginning, because it is a really, the Indigenous relationships that we have is really important in to me personally and to the Downtown Community Court. BC, just an overview real quick, but BC has taken a number of steps to try to work to support Indigenous people that have been impacted by the legacy of colonialism. BC became the first jurisdiction in North America, I'm pretty sure about this, to adopt the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. BC Corrections, both custody and community, have entered into a number of memorandum of understandings with Indigenous groups around the province to work together to support Indigenous clients coming out of custody, transitioning back into community, and to provide them the cultural and Indigenous support they need, either to their community or if they live in urban centers. And the Downtown Community Court is always working with Indigenous agencies and nonprofit organizations to increase the number of Indigenous supports and staff for our clients. In BC, we have an overrepresentation of Indigenous people. People's here in the criminal justice system, about 25 to 30%, both custody and community. And that is in comparison to a population of approximately 5%. So the number is very skewed. So we want to try to help support that. So a couple of evaluations really quickly that have been done on the Downtown Community Court, one by Dr. Julian Summers and his team at Simon Fraser University here in BC, Vancouver. And that looked at and found the case management team model, the wraparound care that Fiona mentioned, actually helps to reduce recidivism, but also increases the access to social services supports, to health supports, to housing, and this in turn, of course, lowers their risk to reoffend. The second one, Court's Health Intervention to Advance Canada's Achievement of Sustainable Development Goals, was done in 2019, just before the COVID, 2019. And that was Dr. Reggie Garcia and her team at University of British Columbia. And what they did was they came in and looked at whether or not the Downtown Community Court was actually helping clients in terms of social determinants of health. And what they found was, in fact, that it does, and it also supports the United Nations 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goal, specifically number 3 on wellness and health and wellness. And they are doing a second report on that, a follow-up, which is a little bit delayed because of COVID, but that is, we're looking forward to that report to be released sometime in the fall this year. And that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. So I guess I'll turn it over to Mary to help us guide through the Q&A portion.
Okay, thank you so much. So we do have a few questions that have come in. So the first one is, do you have formal supports for people with developmental disabilities?
I can take that one. And I'm not quite sure what you mean by formal supports, because health is a partner on our team. We have all that health would be able to provide us with. We have a psychiatrist here as well. So if we're talking about, you know, medication needed or the treatment needs, that would be part of what we would do for those clients that are with our teams. So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more about formal supports. We're able to set up like home support for clients. Our teams are all outreach, so we spend a period of time here in the office, but often we'll be going to people's homes and we'll be working with other service providers around home support, around getting to appointments in the community, around connecting clients to services that would help them maintain housing and maintain, you know, sustain appropriate health care, etc. So I don't know if that helps to answer.
I wonder if the question was around if there is a dedicated partner. I know there was a very long list of partners associated, like a formidable list of partners associated with this court. Are any of those representative of a developmental disability sort of an outfit?
And I would say not specific, but health is part of our program. So there would be possibilities for referrals. And again, we do a screen before having any of the clients come onto the team. So we want to make sure that there would be benefit for the client to be with our team. So if there's significant needs that couldn't be supported by our teams, then we would look to elsewhere or let the courts know as well that this person would need a different type of support than we could provide.
Okay, thank you. Is there a formalized pathway for people who come into the court to enter into residential treatment centers? Has something been established around that?
I can answer that, and maybe Judge Bain can help me out here. But there is a partnership with the Drug Treatment Court of Vancouver. So if the person is found, you know, that they're found to be suitable for this program and they're interested in this program, they can be referred through the Downtown Community Court team to the Drug Treatment Court team, who will meet them, assess them, and then they will be transferred over because it is a bail program. So that's the only thing I just wanted to mention, that if they're already sentenced, they couldn't go to the Drug Treatment Court. Other options we have are for recovery houses and some treatment options that are available that they could be streamed through. And again, as Fiona mentioned, health can help with that. I don't know if Fiona or Judge Bain want to add to that.
I could add briefly that the residential treatment option in a bail order is something where judges generally wait to hear from defense counsel about confirmation that the individual client of that defense counsel is motivated to have a residential treatment term as part of their bail order. In the absence of that information coming to me from defense counsel, it would be rare for a judge to consider a bail order with a residential treatment term because really the client and the defense lawyer have to come up with that option for bail. On sentencing, there's going to be a lot more input from people in corrections and in probation about sentencing options that would include residential treatment. So the judicial order is one option. I'm not sure if the question is addressing that as a sentencing option or a bail option, but there's certainly something that is frequently done out of Downtown Community Court. Sharon's identified a relatively rare scenario, but an important one, where the person is moved from Downtown Community Court to the Drug Treatment Court. There's a certain set of criteria for eligibility for Drug Treatment Court, and not everybody at Downtown Community Court will have enough stability in their situation to be a viable candidate for Drug Treatment Court. Their criteria are different than ours and more demanding, if I could summarize it in one sentence. to be getting into drug treatment court in Vancouver requires someone who's got a number of aspects of their life organized and able to address the needs and the expectations in the drug treatment court model.
Yeah, and in addition, just to add to that, that's one of the things when the client is with our teams, that's one of the things we are always working on. So we have informal relationships with treatment centers, recovery house, more so recovery houses, and it's always sort of when there's substance use issues, we have detox as part of our avenue that goes through health, but also recovery houses that are informal in the communities that we set clients up with. And sometimes we're giving reports to the courts just to say, hey, if this person is released into the community, we have a recovery house all set up and arranged for that person that we can transport them to and get them there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, somebody else is asking, do you refer appropriate clients and victims to restorative justice programs pre-sentence?
I'm not sure who wants to tackle this one. So the first thing I would like to say is that ironically, Vancouver is the only area that doesn't actually have a formal sort of restorative justice program. There is right now, the city of Vancouver earlier this year voted to make Vancouver a restorative city, first one in North America. And so that also comes with a bit of seed money to start a restorative justice program in Vancouver. So that is coming. Yeah, I'm not sure maybe someone else can help out with this in terms of, actually, can you repeat the question again, Mary? Sorry.
No problem. Let me just find it again. Do you refer appropriate clients and victims to restorative justice programs pre-sentence?
I can try and help out here. These programs are familiar to us in the legal system. I read decisions by colleagues, other judges in places like the Yukon and throughout Canada that have that option. Somewhat oddly, the whole restorative justice option hasn't been implemented in the Vancouver Provincial Court or at the Vancouver Downtown Community Court. We don't have that available to us.
So we do have, and Fiona just reminded me that we do have the Vancouver Aboriginal Transformative Justice Program and the justice coordinators on site who do a form of alternative measures restorative justice where they work with the Indigenous clients to provide a plan that is a healing plan. So they do all the work here to assess the person, and everything is done off site.
Thank you. Two more questions if we have time. Is there a plan to extend the community court model to other areas of British Columbia?
I can take that one, and Judge Bain can add to it. The answer in a word is no. There are a lot of models, a lot of interest in what we do here in Downtown Community Court. We get a lot of visitors, both locally, nationally, and internationally, looking at, can we take this model and will it work in our community? And the challenge is, what is your community and what are your community needs? And do you have the political will? And do you have is everyone on board? And it's, this is a very complicated and complex court that requires a lot of work, and it isn't for every community. Now, having said that, I know that in Ontario there are the justice, I've kind of forgotten the name now, but the justice courts, that they've started 3 new ones there that are sort of a community model. We have differences in community. The closest court we have that's kind of between a community court and a drug treatment court is the Yukon Wellness Court in Whitehorse. So in the Yukon. So I would say that right now, I haven't heard anything. I don't know if Judge Bain can add to that from the judiciary.
Just a little bit, Sharon. Kelowna has recently had an option there called their integrated court that opened in 2021. I haven't learned the specifics of what's going to be offered through the Kelowna integrated court, but it's been a concept that's been discussed in the Kelowna community for about a decade and I think has had to overcome a number of obstacles. So my understanding is that it's got some aspects in Kelowna that are modeled on the downtown community court type of services that are available in Vancouver. But at what stage they're been able to implement now in Kelowna, I'm not sure. Their integrated court services in Kelowna is a model that is going to be, I think, developed and has opened its doors, but I'm not sure to what degree they're dealing with the kind of volume of cases that that Vancouver Community Court encounters.
Thank you so much. And lastly, can you speak a little bit about the role of peer mentorship or peer support? Is that built into or baked into your program? And if so, how?
I can speak a bit about that, Sharon. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Go for it. Well, we have not a dedicated peer support worker with our downtown community court. Drug treatment court did have, or does have, I'm not sure, Sharon, if they still do, have a peer support worker. Vancouver Coastal Health has peer support workers in the community. So again, we are very keen on trying to connect our clients to the peer support workers in the community. There isn't a dedicated one person with community court, though. It's something that I'm sure we are exploring as we go along. And yeah, so nothing dedicated at this point.
Thank you. And I will take the liberty of asking a question for myself here. And that would be, if you could summarize quickly some of your key success factors, and then conversely, what are some of the things that you're hoping to enhance in the program?
I'd love to enhance housing. More housing.
More housing.
I think, well, again, we all have different lenses. So my lens is more to what the teams are doing. And so I see just a huge value in having services here and on site, and the breaking down of all those barriers or working in silos that normally happens. I've worked in regular probation, and I've been in integration since 2008, and I can't imagine working any other way now. So for me and for what I see and just the impact it has on clients, and the care and compassion that our teams have in working with some very, very challenging clients, but also seeing that transition when things start to click and housing gets in place and some sort of harm reduction model set up. So I've seen those successes, and it's wonderful when somebody comes back later and is now, you know, like we've had people that are going through our work and then eventually ending up in they're at detox centers and counselors and housing support providers. And so, yeah, so that's, again, the value that I've seen for sure in the work that the teams do.
You want to go next, Judge Bain?
Okay, sure. Briefly, I would say in terms of factors for success at the macro level, at a level that I'm not really directly personally familiar with, because it's not the role of a trial judge, you need a commitment from the various empires that are part of the provincial government to work collaboratively. Fiona's just commented on the fact that this integrated model that she's familiar with now is by far more effective than any isolated silo. So the people that are responsible for making the big decisions in places like health and housing and Vancouver Coastal Health and forensic psychiatric services and all of the moving portions of their funding, they need to have a commitment to work collaboratively and to not allow for separation off into silos. That ongoing commitment has to be revisited, because the natural tendency of people who are responsible for their own significant financial commitments to the rest of the province are going to need to always be encouraged that downtown community court and models like that, not just us, but other ones, they need to have this input that's collaborative and that involves real costs in terms of funding staff and continuing to fund staff, and not looking at it as a temporary commitment, but as a long-term one. That's the big view. The small view, the more micro success factor, is just developing continuity as a judge, as Crown Counsel and Defense Counsel, to know who you're dealing with, because the people that you see are often going to be back before the courts on a regular basis, and you have to develop some familiarity so that they are regarding their opportunity to be assisted by the downtown community court teams as a really viable option for them, that they can access without the kind of barriers that involve people who are homeless and can't get to their appointments. The confidence that our clients will have in downtown community court is directly related to how accessible we can make the services, and the fact that they can make an appointment by just walking up a flight of stairs from the courtroom to the next floor. We have to keep that available so that there isn't a waiting list, and asking people who have no phone and no address to come back next Thursday is never going to work. So that's the more micro level. I'm sorry to be rushing, but I'm back in court in about 10 minutes.
I don't know if I have time to quickly add to that. I would just say that the programs that we have, we would like to make them, we've worked towards making them more meaningful in that sense, that they actually bridge into community programs that clients will access to help stabilize them. And as already mentioned, housing and health is a big one. There is a nursing shortage right now. We are struggling to fill nursing positions and keep and entice people to come to this area. Vancouver, as we mentioned, is very expensive. So those are some of the things, health, housing, and just continuing on with the programs that we have that are meaningful to the clients. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation today. It was very eye-opening and very heartwarming to see this type of a program and just the impacts on the community. The number of partnerships, as I said before, it's just so formidable. We really appreciate you taking the time today to share about this wonderful program, and we thank our attendees for also joining us as well and learning together. And so with that, I will release everybody to a long weekend. And we thank you all so very much.